Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Great Shot, Kid, the podcast on the Nerd Party Network that explores the non-Star Wars works of Star Wars creators, and sometimes the Star Wars works of them, too. It's a gray area at times. I'm one of your hosts, John.
And I'm Mike.
And this week, we are bringing to you an analysis of the delightful sequel to American Graffiti, the 1979 film More American Graffiti, executive produced and story by George Lucas, and directed by Bill Norton. So, we have discussed American Graffiti here on Great Shot, Kid. Classic of American cinema. Absolutely wonderful. Captured the youth experience of, where were you in 62, just as the country was changing, and ends with a coda as Kurt is going off to college, telling you the fate of each character. And More American Graffiti picks up with many of those same characters, exploring some middle ground between then and their ending. And Mike, I believe this was your first time seeing More American Graffiti, correct?
Yes, it was.
I am dying to get your reaction.
Okay, well, I mean, this is the thing. Like, the reason why I never, watched it in the past, it's not like I was boycotting it or anything. Usually if I like a movie, I will, watch the sequels regardless. And with this one, the reason why I kind of didn't feel the need to do that was not because everyone was saying it was terrible, although that didn't help matters. I think if everyone had been saying that it was a masterpiece, I would have seen it a lot earlier. But the fact that people were saying that it was terrible wasn't really discouraging me. But what wasn't encouraging me was the fact that the first movie really does feel like the work of an auteur. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, Star Wars, in terms of its style, is kind of a blank slate in a lot of ways. I don't feel like that movie could only be directed by George Lucas, because I think that it's kind of devoid of anything that makes it special on an aesthetic level. And I know that sounds very dismissive of it, and it's not. It's just that's
but I mean, you're talking about in terms of like the camera setups. There wasn't anything about the camera setups, because I don't know that I agree with you necessarily, because obviously Lucas brought his Lucasness to Star Wars, and that's what made it what it was.
Well, I don't know. I think what made Star Wars what it was, in addition to sort of like the design world, to steal a line from La La Land, which I know you're intimately familiar with at this point.
Very much so.
George Lucas has a knack for world building, and he does that really well. Like, you create this environment which you feel like actually exists, and the story that he was telling was kind of like epic in nature and everything like that. And I think that all that stuff is what makes Star Wars great. But if you look at it just like as a movie, like in terms of the photography or whatever, there's nothing about it which really signifies anything.
I do not agree with that. I think that maybe what you're speaking to, that where I could sort of like see an argument is, it's well documented that Gil Taylor and Lucas completely disagreed about how the movie should be shot.
Yeah.
And Lucas is on record as saying that it didn't look the way he always wanted it to. He made compromises because Taylor was basically, shut up, kid. I know what I'm doing. I get to call some shots here because I'm the one doing the setups.
And maybe that's true. And maybe if he had his original choice, which was Peter Shashitsky, it would have looked a lot better. Maybe it would have looked like Empire Strikes Back. And I oftentimes wonder, like, if Shashitsky shot, Star Wars, like, would that be the best of the trilogy? Like, I'm curious. Anyway.
Listen, of the original trilogy, there are plenty of people who love the first one best. I
Yeah.
actually, a friend of mine, when I was growing up, his dad, he would hear absolutely no argument that the first one was anything but, one of the 3 best films ever made, and the sequels never touched it.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely don't agree about that. But I agree with your point that American Graffiti, the original, is an absolute tour de force. I mean, it is somebody who really, just was the work of an auteur, like you said.
And I think a lot of that is due to the way that the actors are directed. I think that it has a much more sort of like Altman-esque feel to it and that sort of thing. In addition to the sound design that we talked about, I think that really sort of makes it very unique and everything. And, thinking about all those things, like thinking about, how much it does feel like it was a George Lucas film, as opposed to, like Star Wars in a lot of ways, which I feel like could be taken on by other directors and has been to great effect. I got
Again,
the
disagree, but okay.
okay. I got the impression that like you couldn't make an American Graffiti movie without George Lucas and have it be anything at all interesting.
Okay, so what? Okay, I think I understand your distinction here. That of between American Graffiti and Star Wars, it was completely possible for somebody else to come in and do a Star Wars movie that was equal or greater, whereas American Graffiti is so uniquely Lucas that there is nothing, like, without him, there's no American Graffiti afterward either.
Yeah,
Is
like
that-
you hear,
yeah.
okay, you hear like people doing covers of Louie Louie, and you're like, how is that even a thing? And I know that's a thing.
Right.
I know that like we had a DJ here in Chicago who did an entire like 4-hour set where all he did was play covers of Louie Louie. So I mean,
that is a not so thinly veiled cry for help, Mike. Did somebody get him assistance?
I don't know, but I mean that it's like one of those things. You hear people like, oh, someone's remaking Psycho, and you're like, why would anyone do that? Because
Yes, that would be a good question.
but you find a unique way to do it, and it ends up being a really interesting movie. So anyway, regardless of any of that, you say like, oh, I'm going to do a sequel to American Graffiti, but George Lucas is not going to direct it, and I'm kind of like, well, then why would I watch that? How are you gonna capture what he did or whatever, which was so unique? It's not going to be American Graffiti. It's not going to be anything interesting. It's going to be something which is completely watered down and kind of pointless. So when I started up this movie, I was bracing myself for that, and what it ended up being, I think, was something really, really unique because it didn't try to be American Graffiti 2. It tried to be its own thing, and it came up with its own incredibly unique and bizarre style, which did not really have anything to do with American Graffiti style. It wasn't trying to be American Graffiti and inevitably falling short. It decided to do its own thing. And it did some really, really weird, crazy stuff, visually speaking. And that, to me, made it a very interesting movie, even if it wasn't a very good movie.
I do agree that it's interesting. It was actually Lucas's idea to use different aspect ratios for all the 4 different timelines.
Interesting.
And apparently Bill Norton, who directed it, was picked by Kazanjian. And even though he's the writer-director, he specifically had said to Lucas he didn't think it was going to work, the structure that he had. I mean, I think that at the very least, More American Graffiti showed Lucas still trying to do something non-Star Wars, do something more abstract the way that he always wanted to.
Yeah.
And like there's some alternate reality somewhere where More American Graffiti worked better than The Empire Strikes Back. And that's the path that Lucas went down. I mean, for me, watching More American Graffiti now is very much, I think, what cemented Lucas's direction going forward. this did not work. And I think that to speak to your point, I think that what did not work was that George Lucas was not making it. George Lucas was executive producing it, and he was, one or two steps removed because he's in pre-production for Empire at the time that this is going on. So he can't even, recognize a problem and fix it. He's just, checking dailies every so often and saying, hey, keep it up, do something weird. And my first encounter with this movie is actually from childhood. There was a UHF station here in the DC metro area, Channel 50, that would get away with dropping the occasional curse word because nobody watched it. So they were like, well, who cares? Whatever. I mean, man, the glory days of UHF. And there's a specific scene in this where Scott Glenn, playing the long-haired band leader, encounters a country and western guy who says, "You look like S." And Scott Glenn replies, "You know what? When I woke up this morning, I looked in the mirror and I said, you know what? You look like S." And I remember the specific moment of seeing that on Channel 50 as a kid and saying, they just said the S word. Now, as I revisited it later and as I revisited it this time, I think the movie is an unwieldy mess because it does flip back and forth between the years. Mm-hmm. And I do think that it gets so jumbled up that it is difficult to follow in a lot of ways. There are a lot of things where I can follow the storylines just fine, but then something happens in another storyline. I say, "Oh, that's right. This is a different year than what was happening in what I just left 5 seconds ago." All of this stuff is, because all of the plot lines are separated by, at least 12 months essentially. And so
they're all on New Year's Eve, like in 3 consecutive years or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so I think that really contributes to it. I mean, what's frustrating about it for me is that there are certain things that are good and enjoyable about it as elements. I think that Paul Le Mat as John Milner is great to watch. And, you see a slowly maturing guy. The guy who still needs to mature a little bit. But that in and of itself, I think, speaks to the difficulty of this sequel, is we already know where these people, at least two of these characters, are going to end up finally. And so to give me this story, there's absolutely no there's no suspense. Like, I know that anything I watch happening now, ultimately I have in the back of my brain, is pointless in a sense because I know already what's going to happen to them. Now, there is a little bit of a reversal of expectation with Terry the Toad, but it's not particularly satisfying, the way his story wraps up.
The way that you describe that is very similar to a lot of problems that many people have with the prequels.
And they're wrong.
Okay.
No, listen, I get problems that people have with the prequels and the idea that I know Obi-Wan isn't going to die. And I get that Palpatine is going to become the Emperor and stuff like that. But at the same time, that's why I think the prequels wisely spend their time showing a lot more of the world building and a lot more of the state of the galaxy, because you know that certain of these characters are untouchable by fate as we're watching it. There's no real sense of peril for Obi-Wan because we know he has to make it out of there alive. And we know that Anakin is going to become Darth Vader. And so by spending more time with what caused the war, and instead of relegating that stuff to the periphery the way that the original trilogy did, it takes more of a center stage. I think that's what makes the prequels work, is that he embraces the idea that, well, most of these people that we're looking at right now, most of these people, in this column are going to die and in this column are going to live. So let's show where they are tangentially with regards to the rest of the galaxy. That's why I think the prequels work, whereas this is a personal story tightly focused on these characters, and we already know their definite ultimate end.
I guess so,
in terms of the arc.
I mean, going back to the living and dying columns, would you put like Darth Maul's lower half in the dying column and upper half in the living column? Is that
Well, I haven't seen Darth Maul's lower half, so I would say that part's definitely dead.
okay?
But
I see that they're
he's got
going
a
to face
fighter's
off
heart.
again in a couple of weeks or something like that on the show.
Yes. You know what? Yes, they do.
Uh-huh.
And what's very interesting to me is the fact that I think this is a statement about exactly how bad More American Graffiti is.
Uh-huh.
Is that we seem to be subconsciously looking for anything else to talk about than the movie.
I'm just saying that maybe this time around, Obi-Wan has learned from his mistakes, and instead of cutting Darth Maul in half horizontally, he'll try to cut him in half vertically.
I
See
think
if that works.
I think Darth Maul is like the Highlander or the Kurgan and can only be killed by beheading. I think that's the key. I think you can cut off his arms and you can cut off his chest right below the diaphragm, but you cannot. He can't survive a headshot.
I'm guessing he can
that's
only
the key
be killed
difference.
by low ratings. So we'll see how that works out.
Zing.
Anyway, so More American Graffiti. Now, the thing that you're talking about, going back a little bit to it being confusing because it takes place in the 3 different time periods.
Yeah.
I mean, perhaps it was a bit confusing, but I think they do a fairly good job of, showing which one is in which time period, visually speaking and everything like that. And I do think that it would be kind of cool if more movies were like this. You know what I mean? It's like it's outside of the box filmmaking, and it's experimental in the ways that Lucas likes to be experimental, and really hasn't had a chance to be experimental in like the Star Wars movies. And I think that that stuff is really solid. The stuff that doesn't work is the fact that all the stories that they're telling are kind of cliche and boring and stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that I think that the only story that I actually thoroughly enjoyed, and again, Paul LeMatt's great as Milner, but the only story that I actually enjoyed was Candy Clark's story.
Yeah.
Because I thought that was an interesting story and actually showed a character maturing.
Mm-hmm.
Actually realizing, oh my gosh, this life that I have now is not good. I need to find a new life. I need to move forward. I need to go forward. And that is the lesson that American Graffiti is supposed to be, the original is supposed to be all about. It's time to grow up.
Yeah.
The sunset has set on your youth, and you have to go out into the world and grow up. And Candy Clark is the only one who seems to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Milner does, but he, it's blunted by, okay, well, this is as far as he's going to get.
Yeah.
Now, with the split screen stuff, I thought it was, especially because we took a look at Sisters.
Mm-hmm.
The split screen stuff I thought was very interesting in this. That part was actually edited by Marsha Lucas.
Oh, really?
And
okay.
yeah, and I wanted to get your take because I think that Sisters is an incredible example of split screen working very, very well when they used it. What did you think of the split screen moments in this?
I thought it worked pretty well for the most part. I think sometimes it was kind of just being done for the sake of being done, but I think that they had a bit of a different philosophy in this one, where it was supposed to be more abstract and it was supposed to kind of, show these juxtapositions, not so much in order to show like 2 things happening at the same time, but more to show like 2 things happening, regardless of time, but showing like different perspectives on the world in a sense.
Right.
And I mean, I guess like Sisters was more refined. It was better in terms of the storytelling and everything. But this, I think, they were going for more. And, maybe they didn't hit it, but they were at least, they get an A for effort,
Yeah. I agree that, but, for me, it felt like they were, I don't know. I mean, the split screen felt gimmicky in this. because it felt unnecessary. Like, again, comparing it to Sisters, when the split screen was used when he was killed in the beginning, it's so that you could see from the perspective of the woman who was the witness without cutting away.
Yeah.
And so the tension is still there. You're still in the room with the guy trying to survive. And at the same time, you're seeing the guy hide behind the hallway, the turn in the hallway while the other people are coming off of the elevator. And so you're seeing that, and it actually increases the tension. Whereas this, I think, is just there to be there. It just didn't fire off for me as well. But I mean, I guess that's a fair comment for the entire film. Lucas shot some of the stuff, I know, for the Vietnam stuff himself, actually, and he did some editing on that.
Which is interesting because this was right around the time that Apocalypse Now was finally coming out.
Yeah.
And, here it is. It's like Vietnam footage, which was shot in that sort of 16 millimeter, Vietnam documentary style photography, which is how he had intended to shoot Apocalypse Now when he was going to be directing it.
Yeah.
And instead, Apocalypse Now ended up being this super high, glossy, production. And Lucas gets to do his version of Vietnam here, although it's more MASH than Apocalypse.
Right, yeah,
Now.
I was going to say, yeah, it's more MASH, but it's more, I would say it's more MASH the TV show than MASH Altman's film MASH.
I would agree with that in
a
big bad way.
Yeah. One of the things, my biggest problem, though, with the entire thing, in all honesty, is the fact that in the first one, the soundtrack was a character. We can beat it to death talking about Murch's, involvement with things. In this one, the soundtrack is just a soundtrack. It's just music that happens to evoke an era, as opposed to something that feels like a connective tissue, until the very end with what they do on the actual moment of turning midnight at the different years. But there's no sense of, of that connective tissue. They have Wolfman Jack thrown in there in the appropriate year, but it's very obviously just tacked on as a callback to the previous film. So I don't know. The soundtrack for me was one of the biggest letdowns of the entire film.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, and I think like that type of thing was one of the reasons why I was skeptical about this movie going into it, because I couldn't see someone, replicating that, to an effective degrre. But I think, by going in a slightly different direction with this one, I mean, since it is the 3 time periods, I almost feel like that wouldn't be an appropriate thing to do. And I mean, I don't know exactly whether or not it is accurate to the years that these things take place in or whatever, but I would imagine, for people who, grew up in this era or whatever, it would kind of fit to hear certain pieces of music in the 3 different, years, and maybe that would help to sort of signify what time period you were in as well. And I mean, I thought that the soundtrack was really good, regardless of any of that. I really enjoyed the music, which was...
The music's good, but I just didn't think it... I mean, it was just like... it was just like any other sort of like gimmicky soundtrack that you'd hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
this is a tidbit which I have to admit that I didn't know off the top of my head, but I think it's a very interesting tidbit nonetheless, because I think it speaks to how Lucas as a producer was able to leverage a lot of his newfound power from Star Wars. With the drag race, the big drag race at the end with Milner, they needed 4,000 people in the grandstand. Do you know how they got them in there?
CGI?
Little bit ahead of the time there for the CGI.
Okay.
That would come much later. Although actually in the pod race arena, it was actually colored Q-tips moved with a hairdryer.
Okay.
But they were all promised free toys from Star Wars.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they were like, come down here and you'll get a free toy. And that is exactly how popular Star Wars was you'll get
I'd
an
do
action figure. I'm on my way.
I mean, but it is really interesting, like with those sequences, like you can really see like the genesis of the pod racing sequence in that.
Oh, sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
the helmets and everything, which I know
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure a lot of it just has to do with like him taking his cues from the history of it. But like
Yeah.
the shot selection, some of the sound effects. I mean,
Yep.
the crowd shots, like there are crowd shots where I'm like, wow, he lifted that shot right out of this movie and stuck it in, episode 1. I mean, it's crazy how you could see him on some level. I know he didn't direct it, but as an executive producer, and we know how involved Lucas is in his productions. Like he was kind of like working out things which he would then later use in
Sure.
Star Wars in Episode 1. The big difference being that these races are much, much shorter than the one in Episode 1. But
I will not listen to you badmouth pod racing, my
there's
friend.
a More American Graffiti connection there, too, because it was Ron Howard who told him to make it longer. So just like his mustache, I guess, right?
Yeah,
In
well,
this movie.
this is, I think, Ron Howard's last credited role as an actor on film,
Oh, yeah?
at least until the 4th season of Arrested Development,
Yeah.
which, hey,
That counts.
yeah, it counts.
Yeah.
But yeah, the I don't know, man. I like it. I would love to see. I mean, speaking of that, these shots are just like this, or this scenario is like this. Typically, with Lucas movies, especially the Star Wars movies, we know all of the storyboarding that went into it.
Yeah.
Animatics. By the time Episode 3 came around, I would love to find out if storyboards were used for this.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever going to do a making of More American Graffiti. I think if I were to walk up to George Lucas, or I guess Kathleen Kennedy at this point, because they probably own this as well. If I were to walk up to them and say, I want to do a making of More American Graffiti book, an in-depth documentary book the way Rinsler did with Star Wars, I would be, while they were laughing, they would probably pick me up and throw me down the stairs.
Yeah.
Like an old exploitation movie. Like there's not a chance. Like in my head, I think if you were to strand George Lucas on an island and say you can either burn the holiday special or More American Graffiti, one of these two will die on this island. I think he would have a real conundrum as to which one. Like, okay, let's make it more interesting. Between the Star Wars holiday special and More American Graffiti, you have the option. One will be destroyed forever. But as the flip side, the other one must be shown once a year for all time. What are your choices?
I mean, what are my personal choices, or what do I think?
What are your
Lucas would
personal
choose?
choices?
I mean, I would definitely rather have the holiday special than More American Graffiti, for sure.
Is that just because you enjoy that specific brand of awfulness more?
Oh, I think that More American Graffiti is probably a better quality production, but at the same time, like with the history of Star Wars being what it is, and my interest in Star Wars versus my interest in, American Graffiti, and not to mention the cartoon, element of it and everything like that. I mean, I think that there's definitely a lot more to be gained historically by the existence of the holiday special, at least for me personally, than there is from More American Graffiti.
I think I agree with you, sadly.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. More American Graffiti will always occupy like an obsessive part of my brain where I will always wonder, this is real. This must have given him a pit in his stomach when this came out and he had Empire coming up. He must have been terrified.
Yeah.
Because you've got to think that this comes out and it's a flop. There's no question it's a flop. And he's thinking, oh my word, I just bet the farm on The Empire Strikes Back. What if it goes like this?
Yeah.
And the thing is, The Empire Strikes Back was not an untroubled production. Mm-hmm. They almost called the loan on it. It was way over budget. It was way over schedule. and they so overscheduled that they had to have the second unit director direct a lot more primary scenes than they had anticipated. And Lucas has got to be like apoplectic, but at this point, like, I don't know, man. I mean, like, I can just see, did he bite off more than should he have not done this, or should he have done this and then gone to Empire? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
I don't know what scenario works. Should he have directed this so that Empire could have just been done on its own? Like, if he had taken this and stepped out of Empire, what happens with Empire if he hadn't been as involved in the creation of that?
yeah.
Why would you split yourself? Like, why? I don't know. I think it's a fascinating what if scenario.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because this was essentially the start of the second phase of his career. Where prior to this, he was a director. He had made 3 movies or whatever. Now he's becoming a producer. He's becoming essentially a studio head in a sense, and he's trying to figure out how to balance that workload and everything. And he had some missteps, I guess, but he had some successes as well with Empire Strikes Back
and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's fascinating. This is would you recommend this? Final question: would you recommend this as some sort of curiosity piece for somebody to watch, or would you just say to them, you know what, they never talk about it, they never address this in any of the documentaries. It's as if this doesn't exist. Would you tell somebody to watch it out of curiosity or just live without it?
I mean, I feel like really sort of in the middle about it. It's the type of movie where I think like it doesn't have a lot to offer, but there's like enough stuff in there which is unique about it that I could see someone taking a look at it just for the sake of history or whatever. But I wouldn't rush out to see it. There's a lot of movies I would see before I saw More American Graffiti, or before I recommended More American Graffiti. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about you? Would you?
I don't. Honestly, I think that you can live without seeing it.
Yeah.
I think that there are some curious points to it. I think that there are some things. I think that this movie, more than anything, is one of those fascinating studies, if you're so inclined, in when the parts are like your impression watching this movie is, why isn't this gelling better?
Mm-hmm.
There are things that are good. Why is this not coming together?
Yeah.
Is it a fault of the editing? Is it a fault of the direction? Is it a fault of the writing? Is it a little bit of everything? And so if you're inclined to study something from that angle, go ahead and watch it. And also you can see the old-fashioned Lucasfilm Limited logo, the green one that we all grew up with at the beginning of it, which is, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, it's definitely cool for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you've seen More American Graffiti, or you are renting it after watching this and you want to reach out to us, you can go over to thenerdparty.com/contact and look up Great Shot Kid. Let us know what you thought of it. Let us know, was there something we missed? Are we way off base? Did you see it and you love it? Let us know. thenerdparty.com/contact. You can also go over to our Facebook page at facebook.com/thenerdparty. We post links to our shows there. You can comment to us on those show posts, or you can just go ahead and post on the wall, and we'll keep an eye open for it and interact with you. You can go ahead and you can reach out to us through the network account on Twitter at Join Nerd Party, and you can go ahead and you can reach out to us by leaving a review on iTunes. Go ahead and let us know whether you're enjoying Great Shot Kid, and you can go over to iTunes, look up Great Shot Kid. We're right there. You'll recognize us, and please feel free to drop a rating and a review for us, because we would greatly appreciate it. Let us know that what you like about it, and we'll read that live on the air. So that's where everybody can reach us officially. Mike, where can people find you online?
Oh, well, you can find me on Twitter at Mumbles3K, And you can also find me on commentarytrackstars.com doing commentary track stars. And you can find me on Trek.fm doing Stage 9, where we look at the work of Star Trek creators along with John
Mills, me.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm on Stage 9 over on Trek.fm. And Stage 9 is a delightful one. If you haven't listened to it this week, yesterday we gave our picks for both likely and dream scenario directors for Star Trek Discovery. It was a fun discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can also find me co-hosting Words with Nerds with my pal Craig. You can find me co-hosting right here on the Nerd Party Network, Aggressive Negotiations with Matt Rushing, where we talk about the stranger aspects of the Star Wars galaxy. And you can find me online as Kessel Junkie. So thank you for joining us for this look at More American Graffiti. And next week, we are going to be watching a film written and directed by John Kasdan, one of the co-writers of the upcoming Han Solo movie, In the Land of Women.